So, who are your parents and where were they born?
My father was John Gordon Robertson Gow, and he was born in Helensburgh. My mother was Elizabeth McFarlane. She must have had a middle name, but I can't remember it. And she was born in Glasgow. Elizabeth. My mother's name was Elizabeth Harrison McFarlane, and she was born in Glasgow.
So, Nana, what name were you born under and where were you born?
I was born in Helensburgh as well, and my name was Elspeth Stewart Gow.
And what year were you born, Nan?
In 1925, 25th of August 1925.
So tell me a bit about your parents and what they did.
Well, my mother was a private secretary in Glasgow, and I'm not sure, I think my father was training for the Navy when, or he might have been in insurance then, because in my birth certificate he's got an insurance broker, so he mightn't have been back in the Navy then. They're both very outgoing, especially my mother. Went out more often than she should have, but that's neither here nor there. And my father was a very gentle man. Mum was a little bit, well, put it this way, she wasn't a perfect mother, which I obviously take after. And that's when I was growing up, as a child. I was in Scotland for about, when I was 3, we went to Greece. My father captained a tug to Greece, and we were there for a few months. And that's where there was an earthquake, and my mother and I had to run from the hotel to the tug that Daddy was in, and we had to, Daddy asked the crew to cast off, because there was a tidal wave and we were taken away up in the air with this tidal wave, and it just came slowly back down again to land.
So Nan, tell me about some of your childhood memories.
Well, my father got a job out in Shanghai in the Merchant Navy, and we travelled out in the ship, and one of Dad's crew members threw me a ball. I was in the swimming pool, and I was in a life belt, and of course I put my arms up to get the ball, and he walked on into the other where he was going, and I went underneath the life belt thing and kept coming up banging my head on it, and luckily he came back again and dived in and saved me. I nearly drowned then, and that was on the ship. In Shanghai was when we went there at first. We stayed in the French concession, which was the French part of, and I spoke French most of the time. Then we went to the American concession, and then I was a Yank. And then we went to the British concession, and I remember seeing the poverty that was around. There was the roly-poly man, he was called. He had no hands or feet because he'd stolen, and they cut off their hands when they steal. And then I don't know how he managed with his feet, but so he used to have to roll along the street, and he was covered in dirt and that, begging for money, and scared the living daylights out of me. And we had to I did go to a sort of kindergarten thing, but you had to go with a guard in case somebody abducted you. Might add they would have brought me straight back if they had abducted me, but and just walking the streets and that, it was just, you'd see a Chinese funeral and there'd be hundreds of mourners all crying their eyes out. They didn't know the person, but this was them, this was paid mourners. And they used to go and walk along, roaring and crying. And one day when my grandparents came out, my mother took my grandmother to the butcher shop type of thing, and Granny saw all the ducks and hens tied up along the side of the shop, so she got out her scissors and cut all the ties. There was ducks and hens flying everywhere, so Granny wasn't allowed to come back into the shop.
Been part of a few natural disasters?
Yes, apart from being one myself, when we were in Italy, Vesuvius erupted, but we were far enough away that we didn't get hurt.
Did you see the smoke?
And sparks and everything, the lava coming out. But then when we were in Shanghai, it was my birthday party, and it'd been 98 in the shade night and day for 3 months. The Chinese were jumping off the wharf because they couldn't cope with the heat, and I had these friends for my birthday party, and a typhoon struck, and my side of the table got all the birthday cake and everything that was there, just blew it right onto us. We were a terrible mess. So that's what I was in then.
How old were you?
I'd have been 8 then, 8 and 9, 8. Yeah. And it was, I used to play with my ama, little girl called Baiwo, and she would speak to me in English and I would reply to her in Chinese. And my father came home one time and saw Baiwo in one of my kilts. Well, he nearly hit the roof, but I did Chinaman in a kilt. Wasn't impressed. And then another time I was going to a party and my mother had me all dressed up beautifully with all these gorgeous clothes that the nuns made for me and shoes, and I went to the Thunderbox, which was the toilet in those days, and in like a toilet thing, but it was a dry toilet, and you sat on the toilet seat, and I was taking too long and I heard my mother coming, so I jumped off the toilet seat quickly and pulled the whole lot over the top of me. I was covered in confusion, as well as a smack bum for being naughty. So that was some of the things. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention when I was little, when I was 3, when we went to Greece, there was an earthquake, and the streets were opening up as my mother and I were running for the tug that my dad had brought out, and my dad asked them to cast off because he knew there was a tidal wave coming, and it lifted the boat, I don't know how far up in the air, and everybody just stood stock still and was frightened to move in case if they moved they'd tilt the boat over, and it just slowly came down and back to where it was. It was fine. And then
was it devastating for the country? Like, how did
I don't know, dear. I can't remember what, because I was too little. These were actually related to me by my parents. I remember running with my mother and the streets opening up, but they'd only be little cracks, but they'd be big cracks to me, but being little. Yeah. That's all I can remember of it. And another time when we were, well, it wasn't a disaster, but we were in Greece, and we went to the Acropolis in Athens, and I filled my little jacket pockets with bits of the Acropolis, and then we were staying in this big fancy hotel, and we're having a meal, and I got off the chair and stood and emptied my pockets. There's bits of marble going everywhere. Most of my folks weren't impressed. Story of my life. And then somebody was saying to me they making me copy what they did. Oh no, they were copying what I did, that's right. Everything I did, they copied me, like lifting my jacket up and hiding my eyes, and everything I did they copied, and then I turned round and lifted my dress up. They wouldn't copy that.
I hear you were part of Cyclone Tracy.
Yes, a very intricate part of Cyclone Tracy. We, for the first time in years, I had everything ready because we had a party. We had Christmas lunch with the family, and then all friends came at night and had a party at night. But it didn't happen because a cyclone hit. But anyway, we all went to bed, and we had 2 puppies, Shirley and what was the other one? Could have been Domino, because there were Domino's puppies. Oh, that was my dog, my little Scotty Terrier, Sheena. And they were upstairs, and we were all, Dad and Gail and I went all into the one bedroom because it was blowing a gale by then, and it was, I had to keep getting up, putting towels at the windows because the rain was coming through, and then I wondered why I was getting wet up above. The roof had gone by this time, so I said, I'm not staying up here any longer, I'm going down to the car, is anybody coming with me? So of course everybody did, dogs and cat. Grandpa slipped going down the stairs and made a terrible mess of his leg, and we all piled into this nice new car that we had, and I was worried about the cocky and the preschool budgies that were out the back, or not out the back, round the side of the house, sitting on the old pianola, and Dad said, just get in the car, they'll be all right round there. So we got in, and the car was moving about as if you're on a ship, and I had the cat and the 2 puppies in there, and of course I needed to go to the loo as I normally do, and Grandpa said, just do it in the car. I said, well, not, these are my new seat covers. So I opened the door, and out was the fastest whittle in the world, sitting with the gale force breeze blowing round my nether regions. It was lovely. And of course the cat got out at that stage, so it was just 2 dogs, 2 puppies, and Grandpa and Gail and I. And then the eye came over. Oh, before that a couple of times I'd gone upstairs to get some dry clothes, and the 3rd time I couldn't go up because the roof had really come in the lounge and smashed the display cabinet down the stairs, so it was just a big mess. So we stayed there, and then the eye came over, and we went out to have a look, and Gordon came up. He was staying further down the street. He came up to see what was happening, and we had a big trellis that shielded the car from outside because it was a house on piers we lived in. So it had blown down when the first bit of the cyclone, and Gordon and Dad tried to lift it up, and they couldn't. So we went looking for the cocky and the budgies. Cocky's cage and the budgie's cage were way up the backyard, no cocky in the cage, but the budgies were there and they were fine, so I brought them to the car. And I'm all sad about poor old cocky. But then it was starting again, so we had to go back in the car again, and not long after it, that piece of trellis work just came straight back up again by itself and shielded the car. But the car was completely sandblasted with the wind and the rain.
How did it make you feel?
Oh, I was cross. Wrecking my new car. And of course I was all upset about poor old Cocky. He wasn't there. But the budgies, they were just wet and alive. And Gordon had an old boat up the backyard. He'd stripped, ready to do it up, like a canoe boat. Hadn't moved, just sat on the boards, nothing to hold it. And yet the caravan from the house, not at the back, but the back in front of their place, came past our yard onto the street.
What sort of jobs did you do in Scotland?
I worked in the forestry as a forester. We did everything from climbing the trees to get the cones, the fir cones, taking them to the loft to take the seeds out them, and plant them in 90-foot long seed beds and tend them till they grew to keep the weeds away from them. Then we transferred them to drills, which does rows of trees, and then when they grew up enough, we took them and planted them on the hillside. But in between all of that, you were what they call snedding, cutting the branches off trees in the forest so as you could go through and fell the other ones. And we used to fell trees that you couldn't get your arms around with a crosscut and an axe. None of your electric things those days. It's hard work.
So a crosscut is like a saw?
That's a crosscut saw, yes. Two of you, one on either side. And you had to lay the tree in first of all, so as it fell where the boss wanted it to be felled.
And I hear you climbed those trees if they didn't fall?
Yes, if they didn't fall, I came down with them. I climbed up them and pushed until they came down, and guess who came down with them? So that's why I've got dicky neck and shoulder. But I was young and stupid at the time.
And I hear you're a little bit mischief.
Little bits and pieces. You had to do things to make people jump, like putting cigarette butts in their pockets. And one lassie I wasn't keen on because she wouldn't share her lovely lunch with me. I put a rat in her lunch box because I wasn't very popular with her family. Teach her not to give me something. Cheese, and my mother wasn't very good. She kept meat and stuff that we got for her boyfriend. She cooked them up for them. I lived on bread and cheese. That's why I don't eat a lot of cheese now, because I was so sick of cheese. And she used to come with all nicely baked things, and of course I was starving sort of style. She wouldn't finish it, you see, but she wouldn't share it with you, Of course, Big Mouth would say, "Are you going to eat that, Margaret?" No. No. So I thought, right, I'll fix you. So she was off work for 2 days, all worried, because she, a rat in the lunchbox. Is that horrible, Cowsy? Don't know how they knew it was me.
So what sort of house did you grow up in? Because it was the Depression.
Yeah, well, we came back from Shanghai because my grandmother had passed away. My grandfather died out in Shanghai because he'd had a little Buddha encrusted with jewels, but it was filthy dirty, and he wouldn't let my grandmother clean it. And he wanted to take it to Shanghai. And she said, "No, John, you're not taking it to Shanghai." He said, "Well, I'll die." Oh, she said, "Don't be so stupid." But he did. So then the Chinese-Japanese war started. So we had to leave Shanghai. And Granny had come back to Millport, where she was living. And we were in Hong Kong for 12 months. And then Granny obviously had cancer. I didn't know then, but she was very ill, so we had to come home. And she met us at the boat train, but I don't remember much of her after that. So they had a beautiful home in Millport. They had a beautiful home in Helensburgh, but they sold that and came to Millport, which is an island in the Cumbraes. It was a beautiful little spot. And when Granny died, of course, Mum and Dad didn't want to live on the island. They wanted to go to the mainland for work. So we bought this beautiful place in Tipwood Road in Pollokshields, which is a rather posh part of Glasgow. And we, of course, all the beautiful furniture that my grandparents had, and my mother bought a lot too, but when Granny died, she'd left 43,000, I think, pounds, and that was in 1932 in the Depression, so that's a lot of money. And we had this beautiful home with soapstone Buddhas, and we had a couple of Rembrandt paintings and boxes of silver with Grandpa's initials on them, JGRG, and silver salvers and mice and dishes and all the beautiful things. And because I was the only grandchild, everything was left to my father, but he had the life rent of it. It was left to me. And I never saw any of it. They had 12 silver trays with Grandpa's initials on it, and Daddy got the initials taken off, and I think he must have sold them, because I don't know, everything went in store when my parents parted. But it was a beautiful home. And I had a big swing at the end of the garden, and I used to roller skate, and I'd swing up and then swing, and then jump off and roller skate round the flower beds. My mother having a heart attack and from the window. I forgot to mention, when I was in Shanghai, I had smallpox and typhoid fever, and because I'm not badly marked, it was the matron of the hospital that I had to be rubbed with a jar of cold cream, Pond's cold cream, every day. My mother had to bring a jar in, and they rubbed me from head to foot with it, and that's what stopped me from being pockmarked.
Sounds very lucky.
Mm.
So when did you meet Grandpa?
Oh, I think I was 18 when I met Grandpa. He was Fiona McPhee's cousin, and he was going out to Canada. He was in the Air Force, and he was going out to Canada to become a pilot. And I thought he wasn't too bad, but of course he was one of 2 or 3 fellas that I thought weren't too bad. But I wrote to him out in Canada and told him not to forget to send me nylon stockings. So he said I was a gold digger, which was right. So
So he was the keeper then?
when he came home, well, he was an officer and very sunburned and very handsome lad, your Grandpa. And I thought, oh, he's all right. He asked me to marry him, and I said, yeah, I'll marry you. And I didn't really mean it, because I was quite happy with another fellow I was going with. And Fiona said, my friend Fiona said to him, he said, I've asked Elspeth to marry me, and she said, you don't think she's going to marry you, do you? She just said it just for a laugh. But he held me to it. So eventually he came home and we got married in a hurry, because everybody was counting their fingers to see how pregnant I was, and I wasn't, because I hadn't seen him for 6 months, and I was 3 months after I was sick, so it would have been a full-time baby if I'd had one. But that's the old villagers in those days. If you got married in a hurry, there was a reason for it. So. And then we, when he came out of the Air Force, we moved to a house, prefab they were called. Beautiful little place. And I had Gordon at Aunt Mary's at Anfield, but then Gordon was 6 months old when we moved up to our wee house. And then Fiona came along. Things you get when you're not expecting it. And then, because it was a village, there wasn't much work for the young people. They would, if they didn't work in a shop, or an office of some kind, or the post office, or the yacht slips that were there then, they had to go over to the mainland, which was Greenock and Gourock. And Grandpa used to work there, but he'd have to leave at 7 in the morning and wasn't home till 7 at night on the late ferry. So by the time he cycled home to Sandbank, it was 7:30. So that was no life for young people, because it wasn't good. So we decided to migrate, and we had papers for New Zealand, and Grandpa got a job with an Elspeth Harvey and Son out there, but there was no accommodation, so we couldn't go. So then they accepted us for Australia. So we had to, we had our medical, and then we got our date for sailing, and but we had to go down to Tilbury in London to get the ship out. It was called the Chitral, and somebody had taken a child on with measles, so of course there was 67 cases of measles on the ship, and I was one of them. It was really lovely. Grandpa was so thrilled having to wander around. We took it in stages, the measles, but then when we got to Sydney, we were herded on a bus. The fellow said, all measles on this bus. So that was Gordon, Fiona and myself. And Grandpa had to go in another one. And they took us to Bathurst. Well, we were frozen stiff down there. And in the hospital, the children weren't with me. They were in another hospital, another ward. And it was dreadful, because it was German staff that were the nurses. And it wasn't that long from the war. 1951 we came out, and the war finished in 45. So, and when they wanted you at the office, they called Achtung, Achtung. So you felt like jumping and doing your Hitler sign. And and the meals were dreadful. Oh, and we had, we were in the hospital, but Grandpa was in a room with a camp stretcher, 2 camp stretchers and some blankets, and he was frozen stiff. They eventually let me out of the hospital. But before that, when I go from powdered milk to proper milk, I get the runs. And I had to, so I got out of the room and went to the toilet. And 2 big German nurses standing there saying, "Where you been?" I said, "I went to the toilet." "You no use toilet, you infectious disease." I said, "Well, I'm not using that teacup in there." So they brought me one that I could practically dive into. And I was fed up with it, so eventually they let me out of hospital. And I made them let the children out because we were having to travel to Adelaide. And they wouldn't take responsibility, but I said, "Well, I will." So Then we got the train to Adelaide, and when we got to Adelaide, they had these two buses, a big bus, proper bus, and a big trailer, which we thought was for the luggage. No, there were seats in the trailer. It was for the migrants. So here we are, travelling up the Port Road to the Rosewater Hostel in a cage. We looked like monkeys. And when they said we were going to Rosewater, I said, oh, that sounds a lovely spot. And when we came to this part in Port Adelaide, these big sheds. When we got there, I said to Grandpa, there's rooms in there. I said, no, we're just stopping here for something. I said, no, we're not. And a lady we got to know, Ria Copeland, she was at the bus, and she looked in the bus and saw the horrified look on our faces. She said, oh, it's no as bad as it looks. Which there was, when we got in there, it was 90 rooms, just with chicken wire on the roof, because it was this huge shed, and the rooms weren't lined or anything. And when a baby cried at the top of the shed, woke everybody down to the bottom of the shed. But we had separate places for meals, and the meals were great because we'd been used to rationing in Scotland, and you could pick sausages, steak, casseroles. It was just wonderful. Bacon, eggs for breakfast, and sausages, and whatever kind of egg you wanted. But there were some people there that don't like this. They're damn lucky to get it. So that's what happened there. We were there for 12 months, and then got Grandpa got a job in the ICI, so we got what they called a prefab home down at Taparoo. And I looked at this stove, and wood stove, and thought, you're not going to light for me, are you? And it didn't. So it took me a wee while to learn to use it, but once I did, I could make chocolate eclairs and sponges and do all sorts of fancy things on it. I also had some disasters on it, but it's wonderful what you can do when you have to. And Gordon in the hostel they thought he had polio, but he didn't. He just wrenched his leg. Then I had polio, which I didn't have. Then eventually they were third time lucky. Fiona had polio. So she wasn't hospitalised, but the physio came every day to work on her. And so she's about 1 centimetre lower than she should be. And so she suffers from her polio too. Well, with Fiona, the physio, as I think I've just said, came every day to give her physio, and I was supposed to keep her in bed, but it was so difficult. She was only 3.5, and I'd go out the back door to hang out the washing, and she'd go out the front door. So it was very difficult to keep her in tow, but eventually she's I think 1 centimetre, could be a centipede, would it be a centimetre? Centimetre down on each side, and she's always had problems with her knee giving out. She used to fall a lot when she was a child, when she was little. No, even up in school, she couldn't get off the toilet. You had to help her off the toilet, so it's pretty difficult for her. But it didn't stop her doing things, bringing home dogs that followed her with her dress belt round their neck. So we got Blossom that way. It was a big bull terrier, English bull terrier. She was beautiful. Blossom. I christened her Blossom, but we couldn't keep her because you weren't allowed dogs in the temporary homes. So we had a hard time because dogs seemed to gravitate towards us. But then we built our own home up at Taparoo, Malwa Street, and that was lovely. It was a beautiful big home. I used to cycle up to with a pressure cooker hissing in the basket to take lunch up to Dad, to Grandpa, and we sat and chipped bricks till they were going out of fashion. But we built it, and it was beautiful. And we only lived there 4 years because Grandpa got a job in Darwin. And he went up first for 6 months, not 4 months, and then we went up. And travelled first class. First time I'd been on a plane. Oh, Lady Rookin, with my hat and my gloves and my stockings, and thought I looked just beautiful. Gail all titivated up, looking gorgeous. And when we got to the airport in Darwin, we nearly had a fit. You were half a mile out on the tarmac, dirty, dingy looking old airport, and a man standing in there with his singlet on and Grandpa standing beside him with a funny coloured shirt on. He'd put his overalls in with it and it changed colour. And but we had a little place in Phillip Street which was quite nice. We were there till we moved in Easter to the permanent place we had in Hope Street, which was on piers, a house on piers with a huge yard. Lovely. We enjoyed it. And then life went on. Fiona and Gordon stayed in Adelaide because Fiona was in love, and Gordon
with my dad.
Yes, and with Rocky. Pardon me. And Gordon had to finish his apprenticeship. He couldn't finish it in Darwin, so he finished it and then went to Vietnam. And then Fiona and Rocky got married, had Kathy, and then Gail grew up. She was only 4 when we went out there, up to Darwin. And she was 19 when she got married, like her mother. So it was lovely. All went well. Grandpa wasn't impressed, but that's another part of life. Good and bad bits in our lives. And then I decided I'd had enough of marriage to a gentleman who didn't communicate, who'd tell you 1 much and 3 much, but never too much. So I said, fine, I want a divorce. And he said, okay. And I said, don't you want to talk about it? No. Fine. So guess who paid for the divorce? It wasn't all mingy pockets. It was me. But I've been happy ever since, thank you very much. Best thing I ever did. Apart from having 3 children. That's another story. We can talk about years to come when I'm 100. Which won't be far off.
How old are you now, Nan?
95 and a half, or 3/4.
How old are you really, Nan?
Oh, no. Excuse me. I'm going ahead a wee bit. I'm 85 3/4. Going on 18, mentally.
What advice can you give anybody, or me, or
Advice?
What have you learned?
Well, I've learned over the life that can you turn that? Well, look after yourself. Make sure you try and instill good points in your children. What you put on the waters comes back to you, whether it's bad or good. And don't let anybody get you down. Just give them the finger. Because a lot of people try. But smile and just don't let them do it to you.
I love you, Nan. I'm going to.
Thank
Be
you,
nice to my Nan.
or else she'll belt you. Thank you, dear. With a big tear running down my cheek.
So is there anything else you want to add?
Well, life's what you make it. If you make a backside of it, it's your own fault. It's only you can make your life. Other people help, but it's your life. And if you make a backside of it, serves you right. You've got everything there that you can do to make life special. But sometimes you take the wrong road a wee bit. That takes a while to get you back on that road. But, it's
good example.
But that's lovely. It's people. If you're nice to people, they're nice back to you most of the time. And as I said, what you put on the waters comes back to you, whether it's good or bad. And I'm hoping to see some of the bad coming back to some people I don't like. That's how nasty I am. But I've been very lucky. I've had a lovely family and they're really good to me. And I've had lots of lovely dogs and befriended lots of lovely dogs and people. I've got lots of lovely friends.
Oh, I thought you were talking about your friends then. No.
So, that's it. All in a nutshell. Do what you want to with it, darling. Shove it in the bin or put it in the archives.
You're pretty specky for 86, let me tell you.
Excuse me. 85
21.
and 3/4.
Oh, sorry.
My goodness me.
Well, I'm still 21.
Yeah, well.
And Mum's 26. So.
Yeah, I can't understand how Gail's had her 30th wedding anniversary and me only 35. Miracles do happen.
If you could change anything, would you change anything?
Yes, I wouldn't have got married at 19 and a half.
Okay.
But you don't know what life's going to dish out to you. So, I mean, I hadn't really lived. Life was pretty hard. Why I got married was to get away from home. Because I didn't have a very happy home.
What was your mum like?
Very clever lady, but very vicious. She did and said dreadful things at times. She knocked the living daylights out of me many a time. She wasn't a nice lady, which was a shame. She was very clever with animals, wrote beautifully. She could have written a book, and and her knitting and sewing, needlework, you could put a cloth on either side. With mine, things coggle over with all the knots in the back of it. But her knitting, she could knit 15-row pattern and read a book at the same time. daughter doesn't take after her.
In lots of ways. And so what was your dad like? What were his gifts?
What I knew of Dad was he was a lovely man. He was gentle and kind, but he still had because my grandmother had left £5,000 for me to go to boarding school, and I couldn't go because I went to bed. So that was held in trust for me, and eventually it was put into trust so that my father had life rent of this money. But if the 5,000 came to me when Daddy died. And before I went to Australia, I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and Daddy said to come and stay with them in Millport for a couple of weeks, and Grandpa looked after the children. Fiona, my friend, looked after them through the day, and Grandpa looked after them at night. And I was only over there a week when Daddy said, well, I know you're going to Australia, Elspeth. I'm sure you could get a lovely home for £3,000. I could really do with £2,000. And I said, oh, okay. And of course Grandpa had rung that night, and I was telling him about what I was doing. Well, he hit the roof. Don't you bring any of that money home here, don't you do this, don't you do that. When I got, so Daddy wasn't very pleased, so I had to go home. Really good when you're in the middle of a nervous breakdown. And Grandpa met me at the steamer, and when I got there my aunt was sitting. What were you going to do that for? And I was so cross, I screamed at them, leave me alone. I want, he can have it. It's never brought them any luck. It's not going to bring me any luck. So I was going to the lawyer the next day, which I did. Very frosty household, but I couldn't give it to him because it was in gilt-edged securities, so it was tied up that I couldn't give him the money. So, but Daddy thought, well, the day I left to come to Australia, he was supposed to come over and meet us at my aunt's place, and there was a letter there for me saying he was sorry he couldn't afford to come and say cheerio and goodbye, but he hoped my children never did to me or to you what you've done to me. So, little things like that, but everybody's got a nasty bit in them at times. So I used to send him photographs and write. Now and again I would get a letter, but not very often. And I got a letter this day saying, from my great aunt, saying, hello Elspeth, Aunt Isabel here. You haven't written to your father for a long while. He died yesterday.
They love the guilt.
And when you get your money, you should give Frances some because she's looked after your father for the longest time. And the lawyer even said that to me, so I told him where to go as well. So, but Grandpa was quite happy to use the money when it all came.
So did you build a house with that money? What
Yeah.
did you do?
Yeah, we built Marlborough Street with that money.
Oh, that's a lovely house.
Well, part of it, because it was a big house. It was a beautiful big place. As I say, we only lived in it for 4 years because we came out to Darwin. So, and that's it, my dear.
Thank you, Nana.
As well as an old woman can remember. when we were in Hong Kong, Dad's cousin, he was the doctor there, and he was very rich. He retired at 32, and he had three children, 2 boys and a baby girl, Heather, and the mother wasn't allowed to touch the baby, just leave her in the cot, and they had this huge teddy, and he said, get rid of that. So I liked it, so I got it. So I had this big teddy, and he had the clothes on, proper children's clothes on, and used to take them off and wash them. Well, I didn't. The maid washed them and put them back again, and he came with us. But when we were in Scotland, when I was young, we went to Crianlarich for a holiday, and I had Big Ted with me, and these gypsy people came, and the children had awful ragged clothes, so we took Big Ted's clothes off and gave them to the and the old tinker, they were tinkers, gypsies, not, and they used to come to our holiday home and ask my mother, can I have a wee puckle of tea and a wee puckle of sugar? Well, first of all, it was the boiled water. Can I have a wee puckle of boiled water? Yeah. Could I have a wee puckle of tea to go with it? And a wee puckle of sugar? And I suppose you would like some milk too? Aye. So
Cheeky.
And then one of them came off a toothache. Can I have a wee bit of a dram to help the toothache? And my mother said, I've got something just for you for the toothache. Came with a tablet. I'll take it with me. No, you'll not. You'll eat it. Take it now. It'll help your toothache. And then my mother was frightened that she'd poisoned the woman, because don't think she'd had a headache tablet in her life. So,
Didn't get the alcohol then?
Oh no, no. That was bits and pieces. And it's beautiful there. There was a haunted bridge there. We didn't like going down there because you'd get zapped. Never did, but. And, my father's uncle had, well, 2 of them had a farm at Crianlarich, and I used to wander around the farm, and they had this terrible cockerel. He used to chase you. He chased everybody. Uncle Peter used to have a club that he used to belt the thing with, and it'd get up and come back at you again. And I was playing down the thing. This thing came at me. Well, I'm running round this big rock, and eventually I'm crawling round it, and the damn thing's crawling the other way not crawling, but come the other way to me. Well, I jumped a 5-bar gate to get away from him. Eventually, he used to grab the dogs and chomp them.
A bird, a crow?
No, a cockerel.
A cockerel?
A hen, male hen.
Oh.
And one day 2 dogs got him. He was no longer head cockerel. Headless cockerel.
Grumpy bird.
Oh, he was terrible. How they kept him, they thought they'd killed him a couple of times, but Crianlarich's a very pretty spot. Whole of Scotland's pretty.
If I was to go back, where would I find, where the family live now?
Well, my cousin lives in Troon, and I've another one in Glasgow, but they're in their late 70s, so.
Do they have children?
Moira has 2 sons, but I've never ever seen them. And Kathy has an adopted son because she couldn't have children.
And they're your mum's
sisters.
Sisters.
Yeah. No. Yes. No. Mum's. They're my cousins.
On your
They're-
mum's side or your dad's side?
My mum's side. My Aunt Jean was Mary, Betty and Kathy's mum. So I presume they were, well, they're my cousins.
So they're your mum's sister's children?
Children, yeah.
And did your dad have any brothers?
No, he was an only child like me.
Okay.
Got such a shock when they saw the two of us, they didn't have any more. Oh, can't have any more of those. Terrible things.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. Life's what you make it.
And you said that at some point we're related to the Bonnie Prince Charles.
Bonnie Prince was supposed to be, but just because we're a Royal Stewart. Yeah.
Okay. So
but-
he's our great
Yeah, well, he's something, but I think he's a wee bit weak listed.
So he kind of had too many kids.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. So it shows my Scottish history. I don't know it.
Okay.
Didn't have much schooling.
Okay. So what did you go to school with? Because you
Well,
went.
I had a governess when I came home from China.
And you spoke how many languages? French
Oh,
and
just
Chinese.
French, German, French, German, and English in the private school I went to. But that was only for 12 months. And but the governess, I got rid of the 3 R's, but she taught me how to paint glass and how to do this and how to do that. Things that ladies did in those days, but
Okay.
not ladies that had to work.
Okay.
And then I had to go to, my father said, she's going to a normal school, so I did. And I was only there, well, I did get to high school, because I was 9 when I went to school. So I really didn't have much of an education. 10 I would have been. And then I went to high school. I was only there for about 6 months, because they were building shelters for the bomb shelters. So the school was closed, and that's when I went down to Sandbank with my mother. So my education is sadly neglected.
Right. You do well now, though. I mean, you you were an aide.
I was an
teacher's
assistant,
aide.
but not. It's just through life you learn things. But I can speak English, but nouns, verbs, and all these I haven't a clue. And maths, I'm shocking with maths. So I just managed to sneak past so nobody knows.
Right. Cheeky.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, where are you going now? To whose house?
I'm going to Margaret Johnson's house.
Okay, so we better get you ready for that.
Better get ready, yes,
Can't
get rid of
steal
me.
you any longer.
It's been lovely, darling. Really lovely staying here with you.
Thank you for that journey down memory lane.